It's not getting in.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times and Good People Company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Search for the Loft Party Podcast on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and get the news from us on Twitter. You have received your invitation, and welcome to the party, and be sure to tell a friend. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel. We have some returning champions today. First, we have Dave Elliott. We like to call him Big Dave. He's the owner of C&P Construction. And we have our own personal brain mass, Brian Massey. He's a market analyst for True Media. And, of course, making her triumphant return, we know you missed her last week, the anonymous female. Because she doesn't want you to know her name. So, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. And today's show is called Misinformation Nation. How Facebook and other social media, for that matter, helped influence a presidency. We won't probably be so literal, but I did have a few things that I really thought was interesting. Some stats about Facebook in particular, but social media and stuff that we want to share. And we're going to get into a good discussion. I am sure King of all data himself is chomping at the bit to talk stats about something, because we rarely do a show that's kind of based in the stats. But before we get there, let's get to some RIPs. Now, this is an odd RIP, not because, I'm like, we're going to miss him so much. But here's somebody who had an impact that's going to reverberate on their section of the world, definitely in the world at large, that passed this week, Fidel Castro. Me personally, he has not actually ran Cuba for a while. His son has been, but it's basically been the same regime for quite some time. I am now hoping that we can see way to a regime that is not oppressive, and possibly we can travel there and have some tasty mojitos and be able to buy some Cuban cigars in local stores. That's really what I'm looking for: mojitos and cigars. So before I go on to the next RP, does anybody want to jump in on Fidel Castro?
Well, I think you got to be careful how some people want to state what Fidel was. He was not a Stalin.
No.
But he was very oppressive. He killed people. These people are not good folks. They are very repressive in their regimes and total control. Their lives are not lived as the rest of their comrades are. Their lives are lived fairly well. Mm-hmm. And it's, it goes back to the Orwellian stories of where, certain animals are able to walk upright and certain ones don't. And it's the elite class. And that's the real problem I have with it. You state that you got decent health care for your people and all these things. I've heard a lot of different stories on this, and they're able to do these socialist things for them. But really, what did you do to your people? Why do people want to leave your island? Why do people want to come to the United States?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the bottom line of it, isn't it? If you have such a cool place, nobody's going to leave. If you have a really cool place, nobody wants to stay away from it. Yeah. And there's the difference between the two of them. It really is. Castro should never, ever be put on a pedestal of any kind. He was a brutal dictator in the Latinos' ways. I mean, a lot of Latino countries have had these brutal dictators over time, and it kind of contradicts some of the stuff I say about the Middle East, where a dictator works very well because they have so many different factions. The dictator kind of keeps all these factions in line. They rise up too high, he whacks them. in a small country like Cuba, there aren't that many factions. You're just oppressing your people. So, not totally against a dictator in some ways, but in some ways it works better than others, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's always funny in history. You've had situations with dictators that were actually truly beloved by their people, and then you had others where, like in Cuba, like they're kind of mandated into 9 days of mourning. You know, it's not so. And I'm sure that there are some Cubans that, you know, that liked Castro, but obviously there were a lot that didn't, because a lot fled Cuba when the time came and the opportunity came, and you know I always think of, you know, the movie Scarface, and you had, you know, ultimately a bad character, but the reason they were all leaving Cuba was because of Fidel Castro.
Right. Just not forget, when he sent the boats over here, he sent a bunch of insane and violent prisoners on those boats.
Oh, absolutely.
He sent the stuff to us.
Yeah, he was just like, tell you what.
You want some folks?
Here you go.
I'm not giving you my best. And that's where it was. And Raul now says he's supposed to step down in 2018. So it'll be interesting if the reins of power in Cuba get handed down to a younger generation. Mm-hmm. You know, if you see some general that's 75 years old step into it, don't look for much change.
Yeah, no.
It's not going to happen.
Not at all.
But if you see somebody in their 40s or 50s, you know, I'm not a huge fan of Obama by any stretch of the imagination, but that charismatic type person,
Yeah.
you know, I'll never criticize Obama for his enthusiasm of what he believed in. It's not what a lot of us believed in, but he had a genuine plan and he worked hard to execute it. Well, maybe Cuba can get somebody that's kind of in between like that. They need somebody you can't take that country total out of communism and throw it into capitalism. It'd be total chaos.
Yeah, it would be complete chaos.
But you have to have, or a Gorbachev would be a great example. You need somebody that's like a Gorbachev that has some, you know, brings forward some new ideas and starts to initiate a slow change. Yeah. And that's what I would wish for Cuba, that they have a change that is controlled so that it doesn't go totally chaos on them.
Yeah. Brian? Anonymous?
No, I don't. I mean,
No real thoughts on it anyway?
Well, I mean, no.
Honestly, growing up, we didn't talk a lot about politics in my house. Mm-hmm. And you know, you think, what was it, 8 years ago, right? Is when you kind of stopped really participating in a lot of that, a lot of the government over there. And so I guess it would have been 18 to 20. So I should probably know more about it, but I just...
My wife wants me to go buy one of the cars.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll get Kip to fix it up.
I mean, you
he doesn't have enough to do already.
You gotta figure you have an entire country that's been...
stuck in the 50s.
Yeah, literally stuck in the 50s. So they've been driving the same cars, and I mean, literally the same cars.
And they need to.
They are the best old school mechanics you'll ever run into.
Because in the 50s you could still work on your own cars.
Right.
And they should film 50s based movies there.
They do.
Oh, well, see, there we go.
Yeah, cause I mean, just every car on the island is from the 50s.
But
Cuba does have some movie industry there.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing we watched,
it'd be really interesting what they get into.
We were watching. I want to say it was House of Lies when they were talking about kind of going there and establishing, like, commercializing Cuba.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing, like, it's all, you know, kind of fairy tale-ish to us because we haven't lived that way. And it's kind of like what's going to happen when or if they do get to see how the rest of the world is. And, you know, do they even have internet? I don't think they do.
Barely.
Like,
they can...
Cell phones.
They can buy...
Barely.
That's interesting.
It's kind of like we're going to potentially see, like, this baby just rapidly grow up.
I gotta say, from a data perspective, it would be fantastic to do analysis on it if they're gonna throw media like advertisement and stuff at it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
To do research on how effective it is to someone who's never been around.
I've never been around it.
Because, I mean, we see billboards all the time, for example.
Rare,
I think,
rarely
right, and now,
around.
I mean,
Well,
now you don't even really, probably, I feel like I never really even noticed what's on the billboard. But if it was the first time you saw one, you're probably going to know exactly what's on that.
No,
Well, and
But
I
want to
think-
measure that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think they have fast food there. I mean, I honestly don't know. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I
how
don't-
would
they-
they?
They haven't allowed a lot
I
of
was just
that
going to
in there.
say, if they do, there aren't any American companies. That
Yeah,
would be
that's what I mean. Like, it's just going to be
British
kind of
companies, if
sad
anything.
and exciting.
To my knowledge,
You
there's
know?
been no fast food. If you want to get something to eat, it's
You got to go to a cafe or
You
restaurant.
go to a little cafe and the food is basic.
Yeah.
I kind of
You
envy
know.
them. I mean, they're going
But-
to be
Yeah,
But
actually,
most of the people are
kinda
going to
envy
cook
them.
at home. Most of the people are
But
going to
that's
cook
why-
at home
that's
because
kinda
they
what
don't
I
have
mean
any
about-
money to go buy anything.
About it being a fairy tale to us, because
Can you imagine being able to eat Chipotle again for the first time? That'd
at
be
least
pretty
you pick a
awesome.
semi-healthy.
You got to tell me, like, you got, yes, pay extra for the guac.
Well,
do it.
I'll say this much. I've traveled the world fairly well. And when I traveled, I wasn't in tourist areas. I saw the poor people of the nations I traveled into. I saw that they were poor, but most of them were contented in their lives because that's all they've ever known.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. That's well said. To see them embrace new technology would be almost like our grandparents have been gone for 20 years, all of a sudden being resurrected and stepping into our society now.
Oh man.
They would come out of the grave and go, "What is this?"
It's like it's,
Imagine the
al-
first time they saw a big 60-inch flat screen TV.
Oh yeah.
it's almost like, are you going to use your powers for good or evil?
Yeah, and that's kind of what it boils down to, and I
Yeah.
guarantee you that's what our ancestors would say to us. You know,
Yeah,
they-
I think a lot about my grandfather. My grandmother probably cared about as much as she cared when she was alive. I always think my grandfather, he passed in 80 or 81. And I was just thinking of all, in the grand scheme, that's not that long ago.
Well, it is.
But all of the massive
Technology
leaps forward
it
in
is.
technology
Yeah,
since
yeah.
he passed, like even rudimentary cell phones, like everything.
Well, and that wasn't really like really popular and available to everyone.
No, it wasn't.
I mean,
at all.
it was available to wealthier people, but it wasn't until we were somewhere between 18 and 23-ish
Yeah.
that we had internet
Mhm.
that we could actually get to,
Yeah.
cell phones, pagers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think when my grandfather passed, it was probably pagers. Probably. And not everybody had pagers.
Yeah, I'm
that
gonna
was
say, I
really,
can't even imagine.
that
what
wasn't
a
an
pager looked
everybody
like in
thing.
the
That
80s.
was, you either thought you were important or you were a doctor.
I got a bag phone in '92.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think people really had bag
In
phones
94.
until
No,
like, super late.
I had a huge. It was probably this big
You had the brick.
cell phone.
It was
No,
back
it
in-
wasn't thick.
No, you had
I mean,
the
it was
thin
thick
brick.
compared to now. I mean, it was about that thick.
Yeah, you had
and
the half
about that-
brick.
and it would heat up really fast if you were on it more than 10 minutes.
Touchscreen?
But I remember the bag
Then
phone.
I got one
Because
installed.
my mom
in-
had a bag phone.
I got one installed
I
in my
remember that.
truck. And that was like the coolest thing because it literally came
With
off
the
a
wire?
stem
Yeah, and the actual
on,
car
on the
phone.
other side of my stick shift.
Yeah.
And the phone was mounted here, and then they wired it all up, and you had an antenna on top.
Yeah. Yeah, an
But it
actual
was
car phone.
it was
yeah.
big like a
Well, and,
like a punch phone, not
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a
yeah.
dial phone,
And
but like a
it's-
punch phone now. You know,
satellites and Wi-Fi and I mean all of that. You know, like MP3, CDs. For
Yeah,
that matter.
CDs. Yeah, like it,
I mean, when
it's
you really
all-
well, we
think
had
back-
some 3D back in my day. There was 3D back in the 50s.
yeah, yeah.
They would go to the movie theater and give them the red and green glasses. Now, with one eye, I've never been able to do
Well,
that.
back in your day,
I did it one time, and all I had was a red glass, and I said, "What are you
There
guys
was-
all excited about?
The
I
red and blue.
don't
the
see
red
shit."
and blue.
Yeah, I guess you.
I remember seeing Jaws 3D with the red and blue glasses.
You need both. You need both eyes to work. I suppose.
Yeah, it don't work with one eye. It's just kind of screwy. You know, I tried to pull them in half and get two of them on one, and that didn't work either, so I gave up on it.
Sorry, I made us go off track. But I mean, that's just
Yeah, just so many things.
even beyond the political aspect.
Oh,
it's
yeah, just
kind
so-
of sad
Just
and
life. These
exciting.
are just life aspects.
Oh yeah, this
How we
year.
live
I'm
our
not, yeah, I
lives.
hadn't even touched like politics. I was just thinking, my grandparents who, are probably one generation from sharecropping, coming up from Mississippi to see, a black man as president. Like that would be mind blowing for them.
Yeah.
And so, it's, way off topic, but it definitely.
Well, that's an interesting topic that we need to turn around and envision. We need to talk about our ancestors sometime and what they saw in their lives, and how maybe they would approach our lives today, and what they would see and how they would accept it.
Yeah,
That'd be at least a subtalk down the road
Yeah,
somewhat.
yeah.
That'd be an interesting topic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wouldn't be political.
No.
We can quickly make it political, which
we
we
can
probably
make,
will.
We can make anything political. On this podcast, we can make anything political.
Yeah, that'd be interesting too. I wonder how different generations view importance of their ancestors. Just to
Actually,
be
that's,
honest,
that's actually a really good question.
because I feel like it's not near as important to. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just thinking.
So is Rihanna considered a millennial? Not, because she's
No, she's whatever the next
She's
generation.
So what are you saying for the deaf old cop? How they perceive the internet
the importance of
The
their,
importance of ancestor, like
of ancestors?
ancestry, yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting. It'd be interesting to get a couple different people in there, see what their view is on it. As far as ancestors go, to me, they're everything.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you every morning, I say my prayers, and the three things I thank God for at the end, and I thank Him for my dogs, my ancestors, and Jesus Christ.
All right.
Those are the three things that I think. That's the end of my prayer, because my dogs have always loved me, no matter how bad of a mood I was in. My ancestors have given me all my base.
Mm-hmm.
I go back and look at their thoughts and their teachings and what they came through and all that stuff, and Jesus gives me love in my heart.
Gen Z,
What's that?
Gen Z. It's like
Oh, generation.
millennials
Z.
and Gen Y are the same. You have these are several names.
we were
for
X.
Gen Z or iGen or Centennials. I never heard that.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
I like that.
I think I've heard Gen Z before, but
that
not
would make sense.
the podcast land. The generation after millennials. We were asking that question.
And they're going to call them what?
Gen Z,
Generation
Z.
Generation Z.
Generation
or
Z. And
iGen.
it should have an EE behind the Z. It should be a long Z.
or Centennials.
All right, so just a couple more RIPs before we kind of really get into the meat of the show. One, a rest in peace to kind of one of America's mothers, Florence Henderson. Yes, the mom from the Brady Bunch has passed away, and
Who was a little bit of a body gal. Her real personality, she was a little bit body. You know, she had a mischievous, a little bit flirtatious streak to her for sure, and she was an interesting woman. She was an interesting woman. And she still looked damn good when she was 75 years old.
Yeah, I
She
remember.
still had legs. She was on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
I saw that. I was really surprised. I said, "Wow," you know, kind of like her and Tina Turner, a couple ladies with some fine legs on them at an old age.
And last but not least, we've got Ron Glass.
I remember Ron Glass.
Yeah.
He played a great role on that.
Yeah, he was, which I know Brian will still, when I say this, still won't know what I'm talking about. He was the black guy on a TV show called Barney Miller in the...
He was also on Firefly.
He had Fish.
Yes, it was.
Fish was on Abe Vigoda.
Yeah.
Who was Abe Vigoda? For those in podcast don't know,
Look it up. Google
they
it.
probably watched The Godfather. I assume most
yeah.
people
Right
have seen
now.
The Godfather.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Abe Vigoda was in the first group of he was a good fellow in The Godfathers.
Exactly. But yeah, so anyway, those are people that I noticed, passed away this week. So let's get into Misinformation Nation. So first thing, I found online a few facts. It says 17, powerful Facebook facts for marketers and advertisers. And it has got me to thinking about these stats in general. So the user stats, 1.44 billion monthly active users, 1.25 billion mobile users, 936 million daily active users, and 798 million mobile daily active users. I mean, if you really think about it, and these numbers are as of quarter one, 2015. If you think about it, those are really staggering amounts of people that you can get or push information to. And
This is amazing to me.
what is that?
To put things in perspective, Facebook now has more active users than China's entire population.
That's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and like that's a bizarre amount of people that you can push information to.
And I want to say that from a stats perspective, that if you look at this like sampling, because anytime someone gets on Facebook, they have likes that they go through. I like this company, I like this band, all this stuff. They can easily put a profile together for you for marketing, which is exactly what they do. It's how they make money. Mm-hmm. And with that many users, 1.44 billion, that's plenty to basically be sampling Earth.
Yeah.
And saying Earth has, and they can do this with that many, that they could be almost 100% accurate on the Earth's population and its opinion on things, which is very terrifying, actually.
So you
And that's very terrifying.
see our previous article, social media demographics for marketers.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
This is
This is probably
awesome.
fascinating right now.
Yeah.
So the next stat says that the average American spends 40 minutes a day on Facebook. 34 minutes on Tumblr.
Okay, wait. Back off for the old guy.
Yeah.
What's Tumblr?
It's
It's a social media platform that's based on pictures.
yeah.
So kind of like Instagram.
It was before Instagram.
predates
And
it. So it's still internet based and not cellular based. Like Instagram is kind of based for your phone.
Okay.
Although you can go to Instagram online, but it's really for
you
your
can
phone.
now go to Tumblr on your phone too.
You can,
Yeah.
but it's still a
So
web.
people use Tumblr to send pictures of themselves.
It's kind of like a repository, I guess, of your pictures, and people can comment on them and like them.
Yeah.
And,
So it is
but-
just like Instagram, but more for desktop.
yeah.
For the most part. I mean, people.
I can't look it up.
Like I used to know a lot of bands that their websites would be Tumblrs because
They want to get out what they do to their common
So you get out there and there's some cool picture of them doing some cool thing, or some cool thing that they bought, or some cool thing that they want, or some cool picture of them performing at a show. And then people, could comment on those things, and so that was always kind of interesting to me, how you use Instagram. But okay, so 40 minutes on Facebook, 34 minutes on Tumblr, 21 minutes on Instagram, 20.8 minutes on Pinterest. Don't believe that at all.
hard to believe.
Don't believe that at all.
Pinterest is a product-based type site, correct? Where I'm going to build something I build a nice bookcase in my house, and I can take a picture of that cool contemporary bookcase with all my cool stuff on it, and I'll send it out and I'll say, "Hey, I'm cool. I did this," and so they can like me on Pinterest, and it can even be product-based.
I'll let the anonymous female explain this one.
Help me on this.
I'm kind of with Dave. I don't understand this.
Pinterest is
It's girl porn. Let me
It
just
is
say
not-
that. Let me say that.
It is not girl porn.
It's pretty close to it.
There are men that use it too.
It sounds
but I'll
very
tell
feminine.
you here. I'll tell you this is kind of a snapshot of how you could use Pinterest. So I'm just going to use a girl analogy.
You need to.
I'm going to have
You
a
are
baby.
a girl, in case you didn't notice.
I'm going to have a baby. I want an idea on how to decorate the nursery. I want baby shower ideas. I'm going out to Pinterest. I'm putting in baby shower ideas. All these things come up. Make this diaper cake. Make this.
Are they from other Pinterest users that have done different things?
They can be. They can be, but it's generally
Product base.
companies.
Like
you go out to the internet and you I love this recipe for coconut macaroons. This is the best recipe I've ever seen. I've tried it. You take that URL and you say, I want to pin this. So it pulls up pictures from the site. You pick the picture you want of the coconut macaroon and you put it in this nice little board that you've created, so scrapbook. And it goes
let me masculine it up for a second because I see both their faces are still confused. So you have a bulletin board at work, just a cork bulletin board, and you've got, all your thoughts and ideas about whatever you wanna save those,
Just like subjects.
So you pin them up on that cork bulletin board.
Okay.
Well, basically that's what Pinterest is in a digital form.
And then you can go search it.
It's really a place for you to keep ideas and
Keep and share.
Okay, anonymous female. Did you make those coconut macaroons for Rio?
I've not found a recipe on Pinterest. I already had my own recipe.
You should have pinned it.
But you can, but unless you have, you're really well known on Pinterest. I mean, there's people that have
let me ask you
hundreds
another
and
question.
thousands of
Well, maybe
followers.
What's the coolest thing on Pinterest that you ever found that you did for Rio?
Oh gosh.
She actually finds really cool stuff on Pinterest.
I'll
I
have
don't
to
doubt
take
she
a
does.
picture.
That's why I'm trying to get to
I'll
the
have
bottom
to take
of
a
it.
picture of it. I made a picture frame for him out of cigar wrappers.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, it was actually really cool.
There's a picture that I took of him up here where he's smoking a cigar and drinking.
Leaning against this hole in the brick.
And he,
Probably.
I was probably on that side.
Actually, I think you were on that side.
But that picture's in the frame.
For podcast land, Mario likes a certain corner in this particular bar, and he's been there so long there's actually an indentation. So I had to get a little sign made up said Mario's Corner in there, and that's where Rio hangs.
I sent you, like the stuff that I was reading about introverts. I found that on Pinterest.
Okay.
I find all kinds of, my daughter had pulled her gluteus medius muscle, and I went out there and found stretches she could do to help
that's probably
the
one
pain.
you wouldn't want to Google. That would be weird.
Well, I didn't even know, that there was even 3 muscles, and, it was, anyway.
I feel like as a
there's
male,
all kinds of... There's actually men's fashion out there. There's
I feel like as a male though, it feels very feminine. I'd like to know the.
I actually.
And I don't know. I don't even know why. It just sounds. I don't.
You can actually follow people on there too if you like the stuff they pin, and there are several guys that I follow, and a lot of what they pin are like Star Wars stuff, art stuff. If you like to cook or you want to learn how to cook, you can go out there and see. I mean, you don't.
Well, the coolest thing a guy can do, you want to have a good night, and you know what I mean. Cook something up nice for a lady. Have her to your place, cook her a nice meal, wine and dine her a little bit, and you might get lucky that night. Just saying.
I'm sure you could search that on Pinterest, which apparently should take around 20 minutes.
Yeah.
No. I think that has to be like an average, because you've got people that get on there for 5 minutes and then people that are on there like me. Sometimes
hours.
when I'm really bored, we'll be watching TV and during the commercials, I'll just get on Pinterest and look around and pin stuff.
But
I have a whole board of men's fashion.
But I think that's the point. Is that's how much time their eyes are met with.
Yeah.
Maybe it
Well,
is.
I
an
can
average,
guarantee.
right?
Well, for me anyway.
I
know
think
it's
they're
more than
probably
20
all
minutes.
averages, all
Yeah.
these numbers.
And
But
so Facebook's 40 minutes, Tumblr's 34, Instagram at 21, Pinterest at 20.8, and then Twitter 17. I don't use Twitter.
yeah.
Twitter and Snapchat are basically
Really,
the
I
same.
I don't get
Yeah, and I've never even heard of that ELO or
Snapchat, that seems like a lot of time considering how fast things happen.
I tell you what, out of all these, I probably spend more time on Snapchat than any other on this list.
Yeah, well, now I will say that this
that
list
is also
was done
generational.
in 2015. So I think.
Well, it should be more then because
probably,
Snapchat was really popular then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Snapchat's similar to texting. You just pop stuff back and forth.
Kinda, but it only lasts for up to 10 seconds.
It deletes itself.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what ELO is.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of that.
ELO?
And people,
Clearly.
apparently people are on it more than LinkedIn. So
Brian's gonna go research that one.
there we go.
However, I am on LinkedIn.
All right.
As a businessman, LinkedIn does me some good.
Okay.
I'm able to post, how many crews I'm working. I'm able to post my political appointments and the different things we've done, and if we worked an interesting project recently, I can put up pictures and do different things like that. So it does help promote my brand.
Mm-hmm. I like LinkedIn as long as they keep it from turning into like a Facebook. I don't like getting on
there has been some of that I've noticed where there's some comments in there. It's kind of like, really, guys, this is not the appropriate place to post this. This is more of a business site. Let's talk about your business and everything. I don't need to know about what little Johnny did.
Right.
The night before.
All right, let's push through a couple more of these stats. So I think this was kind of a no-brainer for most of us. Younger Facebook users have significantly larger networks than older users.
Which goes to me because my Facebook is under my name, and I have not opened my Facebook in over 3 years. However, my wife uses my Facebook every day under my name. Now, and she had a good reason for setting this up, because when she was working at the bank, she says, I don't need the bank knowing anything about me personally in a corporate environment, and she was right. We actually got on my niece, who works for Swiss Re, a big international company, insurance company, and they're posting pictures with their tongues hanging out all over the place and drunk or snot at a bar someplace. And we're kind of like, you kind of maybe need to rethink this a little bit, because companies look at Facebook to see what you are, and you need to remember in Facebook what you comment on and who you are.
Well, you should
doesn't hurt to reflect your personality and the fun that you have, but don't do it don't put your embarrassing situations on Facebook.
A lot of companies have social media policies now. And most people don't realize.
You work for a company that does.
Yes.
Yes, I figured they did. I know who they are.
But most companies have adopted some type of social media policy.
You need to have some decorum on it.
Well, it even says in the policy, your personal stuff can
mess you up professionally.
You can be let go for that. So it's.
Which is crazy, but
I've never felt,
to me,
even I've never felt that social media is the place to express my strong opinions.
I don't either.
Unless I'm like really for like food at a restaurant or something, like this is the best restaurant I've ever been to. I'll post something.
It's all
non-confrontational.
Yes. I feel like that is the. Well, and I have a lot of family that's religious. I have. My young cousins that are on there, and I mean, I take pictures of my friends and stuff when we're out and we share them, but I don't post them on Facebook because but
I think this gets us a little bit to the point that gets people stirred up is that, you put on an article out there that piques people's interest, and all it takes is one person to comment and say, yeah, I'm all for this, or I'm all against this, and then that causes someone else to jump in and say, well, no, you're wrong.
Exactly.
It goes back to keyboard.
My best friend DW, we've come to this. He will post some stuff sometimes. He really works hard on his gay issues. He's very engaged with them, and I don't have an issue with that. But sometimes he goes a little far out there, and so my wife will point these things out to him. And our rule is, I'm either going to text him or send him an email if I got a comment saying, hey man, really? you need to back it off a little bit. And with this, DW is very political and everything else too. So
And passionate.
this is how him and I will go communicate, and I'll say, wait a minute, this is not exactly what you want to have out there. And sometimes he'll disagree with me, and other times he'll agree with me and knows that he went too far. But I love him for his passion on what's near and dear to him. I will never back him off of that. But there's places to put it on and places not to.
This is one that you may be able to explain a little bit more. Being our data guy, it said click-through rates are higher for custom audiences than Facebook Exchange. This is according to the research from Kinetic Social. Click-through rates for website custom audiences are outperforming those on Facebook Exchange. In December 2014, the average click-through rate for U.S. retargeted display ads run on website custom audiences was 1.25% compared to 0.12% on the Facebook Exchange. So, I just as somebody who wouldn't fully understand, I think people understand click-through rates, but when you talk about custom audiences and stuff like that, do you kind of know what they're talking about?
I'm looking up a little bit closer here because I'm curious myself, but I think we should start actually with what actually means a click-through rate, because with the way that ad blockers work these days and that sort of thing, it's a little interesting. So what a click-through rate means is, first of all, there's a thing called impressions. What that means is some sort of advertisement was put in front of a user. So this is looking from an advertising agency's perspective. We got an ad in front of a user. That is considered one impression. And a click-through rate would be when that user clicks on it.
Okay.
And takes them to that ad. Clicks on the advertisement, takes them to wherever that ad is supposed to take them, which is how
Facebook makes their money.
Facebook, well, yes, so it's a little complicated because these advertisements come through what's called a campaign. So I think you have two companies that are selling the same thing. Say they're selling phones. So you have Samsung and LG that are trying to sell a phone to a certain demographic. So they both say, I want to target this same audience. And that's when they go to Facebook and they say, here's the audience I'm trying to target. And Facebook can come back and say, well, we know exactly who those people are. We'll put these ads in front of them. But those two companies now bid against each other to get that ad in front of that audience. So the only time, whenever there's an impression, that's when that company is charged. So LG would be charged for that impression, for whatever they bid. And if they bid higher than Samsung, then they'll get that ad in front of them, and they will be charged.
So it's kind of like Google in that aspect, where
Yes.
Google's always after you pay us more money, we'll get you higher and higher on the page. So that when somebody Googles you, this is what comes up first.
There's two different sets of things on Google. There are AdWords, which are actually the first two links you'll see when you Google something are actually advertisements, even though they look like the results. And those are done the same way as a bid for the companies. They're bidding for whatever.
Which even
phrase.
come up on my email.
And
There's
there's
always
ones on the side.
advertisements at the top of my email.
And there used to be ones on the side. I think they've removed those. They don't do that anymore.
So in here it says it's good to note that Facebook is only desktop, that their ads aren't supported in their app. And then the other one is supported by both.
And the reason I wanted to go there is it gets right to what topic of the show really is about in Misinformation Nation. So you get these advertisers who are more and more savvy about, I should say, you get these users that are more and more savvy that they're being advertised to, or that they're being pushed something. So what happened, and it's happened heavily in 2016, and I know it was happening before that, but I noticed it really heavily in 2016 was things were starting to be disguised almost look like just a post that you would find in your regular kind of Facebook stream of posts. And
there are no laws against it, so I think that's part of the problem.
Exactly, which is
Is this what some of the media started to get on Facebook about?
Yeah. And it's not that Facebook itself is doing it. It's because it's not illegal that anybody who wants to pay for the privilege really can push whatever they want to push. So if there's a story that says, Trump slapped an old lady and called her ugly, it's probably not true. But if that's the agenda you want to push, they can push that. Or if Hillary, tripped a rival and he got hit by a truck, same thing. Because the posts look authentic and the news looks authentic, a lot of people are falling prey to the misinformation.
Which is the basic thing of the internet and our news that we get from it, that if you're only getting your news from your Facebook and your internet, if you're a millennial, I'll pick on the millennial for it because they're the ones that seem to do it the most. Am I correct?
No.
I think that
who does seem
Not
to
in
do it?
not in my experience.
But-
like on my page, it was a lot of people that were older than me
Right,
Well,
and I
that
think
were sharing.
Well, my question is then, I read the paper.
Yeah.
I watch CNN. I watch Fox News. I watch MSNBC.
Yeah.
Because I don't get my news from the internet too
Right.
often. I have an internet site that sends me an email, and it's more conservative. It's interesting to read through it. I'm able to filter out a lot of stuff because I turn around and I get a lot of different information from a lot of sources. And then I have a very multicultural, multi-device group of friends and people that I know. So I get all kinds of different opinions.
Right.
Which
But
means
not
that I
everybody's
can,
like that.
which I can mean that I can form my own opinion,
Ex-
right or wrong,
Exactly.
because I go out and get several different sources of news.
A lot of people, though, they see something either it's an ad type thing, or you may be interested in this because you've done this other stuff, or one of their friends puts it on their page. They see it, so they share it too. Instead of stopping to think, is this true, or reading it or seeing where it came from,
They just react to it.
they immediately post it with because it's something that they already somewhat believe. So,
Yeah.
this just proves what I've been saying.
And I've been guilty of doing this and sending something to DW, and he'll turn around. He's a great researcher, and he'll turn around and go to all kinds of different sites and say, well, Snoop says this, or this site says this, and it's not totally factual.
I go to Snopes a lot.
So it's rather interesting, even though I think Snoops can somewhat to their own opinion, that I've noticed somewhat, not very much so.
like a little bias.
Yeah, they're a little bit biased. Do you agree with that?
Well, they
Do you
usually
snoop
tell
some?
you. I do.
You
but
snoops a lot. Do you think there's somewhat a little bit
I don't
biased?
think so, because I think that they say this appears to be false, or this is false, and this is why.
So they give you a variable.
It's
They
not
give you a variable.
always black and white. Like
Yeah. And there's some half truths, why you would call a half truth in this.
right.
Yeah.
So I want to back up for a second when we were asking about the website custom audience versus Facebook Exchange. So there's a significant difference between the two. I mean, it's small, but it's significant in the sense that it's very meaningful. That Facebook Exchange uses cookies, which is why it's more of a desktop based. So it's on your website where you've been. Where custom audiences attaches an ID to you as a user, and that looks at maybe the different things that you were interested in Facebook, for example. But what's interesting about that is if you consider, they've talked a lot about these closet Trump reporters.
Right.
Something like Facebook Exchange, if it uses cookies, may be able to find those because it can tell you've been to these other websites where maybe you wouldn't post anything on Facebook about it, but you've been to the websites, and that may be a...
So it pushes.
But there are things that you can do on Facebook that you can say, only I can see this. So there's things
Well,
that
yeah, but then why would you post it? I mean, that's...
people do, though.
You don't know. You haven't seen it.
I know people that do it.
Okay, but I find that a little interesting. And then we were talking a little bit about the fake stories and the fake news, and I think the first thought is millennials probably only get their news from the internet and that sort of thing. But I grew up with this. I feel for me it's really easy to detect when a news site is complete BS.
Well,
it's like I can tell
once
'cause I
again,
grew
though,
up
it's
with
easy for you because you actually think.
Hey, what's going on, podcasters? Let's acknowledge the good friends of the Loft Party Podcast. The Majestic Restaurant and Pendergast Club, carrying on Kansas City's tradition of great food and great jazz, 931 Broadway in Kansas City, Missouri. The J. Rieger Kansas City Distillery, whiskey, gin, vodka. That is, oh so good. And friend of the podcast and panelist, Lane Boland, managing to keep the podcast going. Apparently wealthy or not. Now onto our regularly scheduled program.
Not everybody, and I don't mean that in necessarily a bad way.
I'm going to use Mama Massey as an
But
example.
people don't always... The Onion is a perfect example. For a long time, people thought that was a real news site.
I love that site.
Yeah, I mean, the Onion is hilarious, but it's not news.
Yeah, but for the longest time, people did not... And I mean, when you have names of sites that sound legit...
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
know,
it.
like
Well,
was
I
it
think I think
what
that
was the one that they said, the Denver something or other?
Oh, yeah.
That's probably your next topic.
Yeah.
But
I do
losers.
I do think you're right in that millennials, having
donkeys?
grown up with this technology,
We're used to detecting those things. I mean, think about those fake download buttons all over the websites, right?
Yeah.
Download here, and that's not it. Why do you know? Well, you just know. You can kind of tell by looking at it. I don't know how to explain it to like my mom.
Getting
for example.
your information off the internet isn't the thing, because if you still go to credible sites like CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, or if you actually go to news sites or newspaper sites and get your information, that's one thing. But believing everything that you see on the internet is another.
And I think you said it right earlier. It's more experienced generations that are getting caught in that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like
You can say older; it's not necessarily more experienced.
well, it's
Well,
like
I think it's I think it's generational.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, it's
I don't
like
think it's younger and older that gets caught up in this. I think people my age read certain things and they get caught up in it just as much. Absolutely. It's because you're hearing what you want to hear.
yeah, well, and I
That's
think that's where it really comes down to, which actually takes me to the next thing. I found this thing on the New York Times website. It's talking about the hoaxes, fake news, and misinformation we saw on Election Day. So some of the hoaxes. People behind hoax Twitter accounts were very busy. Meaning, one, there was a breaking news, the first Florida election poll numbers that were released actually weren't real. It took way more time to get some of those numbers. The problem comes in that you're getting some of these things and they're starting to bleed into real news. So like stuff was picked up by CNN, or it says here that Rudy Giuliani said that we cannot let blacks and Hispanics alone decide the election of Hillary. Everybody deserves a say. All others head to the poll now. And that was found to be a fake thing. It was just put out there, and people read it. People were like, "Yeah, I feel that way," and they ran with it. And I think that's where it's starting to get dangerous.
Well,
that could also
and it could be on both sides.
It could have the opposite effect. Where the blacks and Hispanics would say, "Well, screw you, I'm going to go out and vote."
Well, absolutely. But I think the problem is everybody's reacting off of misinformation.
That's
Well,
heavy.
and you said it-
Everybody, including Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You said it earlier. People they see what they want to hear, right? Or they agree with it if it's what their opinion already is sort of leaning towards. And with this advertisement, with these ads and all this research on Facebook, they know who to target to get them to lean a little bit further that way. They know if they put these types of articles in front of this certain demographic, it's going to take off. And I think on top of that, part of the problem is it was just a few weeks ago we were trying to do fact checking in some of our when we did our mock.
Oh yeah.
And it was too hard to find what is the
like
truth.
actual,
I don't know.
real information.
Everybody bangs on Trump about his Twitter account and stuff like that. He said plenty of stupid stuff, but he did connect to a bunch of people
Yeah, no, I don't
that
think
went out and voted for him, and that was a rather interesting aspect that I didn't even think about.
Yeah, no, I don't.
He's not the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Honestly,
No, I'm not
yeah.
saying, but I'm not saying he's the first one by any stretch of imagination. Because Bernie did it too.
It happened in 2008 when Obama started his
Yeah.
campaign. He was the first one to use
Really go
social
social.
media.
Yeah, to really use
And it
social
worked,
Yeah.
it worked
Yeah,
very well. for
absolutely.
him. These politicians have figured out that
Yeah.
this is where they have to go and try to reach different people.
Well,
But
Yeah,
but it still goes back to making sure what you're replying to, responding to, reacting to, or reading is real and true, instead of just truly being a reactionary and just immediately within seconds I have to reply to this. You know,
It would be a
nobody-
nice service if the government were to provide this would be hard. I don't even know if I want to say this actually out loud now I'm thinking through it. My initial thought was it'd be nice because I don't know who else could do it, but to provide some sort of site that could give a credible rating. Like they kind of do for colleges, right? Colleges become credible.
Oh, yeah,
college.
you know,
But do that for
this is-
sites and just provide that on a government website that says, so you can.
Yeah,
The
this
Better
is
Business
this is
Bureau.
real news. This is
But-
real.
but I mean,
I think that's
with
hard.
news.
I think that's
Yeah,
hard
but
to
even
do,
if it's
though, because
just like
everybody
some-
has an opinion.
even if it's some, like you say, type of, if you see it on the site, you're like, oh, okay, this is real stuff, and
Yeah.
versus, but you have to earn that seal.
Yes.
And the problem comes in, we're in a digital age where things will be hacked, things will be duplicated.
But that's why I'm saying you have a site that you like .gov.
Oh, that you
That
go
you
to.
say, is this on there?
How many
is this
people-
real?
How many people would not trust that the government was?
Well, and that's why I said when I went down this thought process, I'm like, well, that
Bingo.
probably wouldn't work.
That's-
But
You would have
that's my
to use
thought.
you would have to use some kind of like a PricewaterhouseCoopers or
we should make
Or
this Cuba's
Ernst and
first
Young,
priority.
or-
Let them take it.
That Cuba building.
Yeah.
And make them pay for it.
Sounds like a great
Make
idea.
them pay for it.
You were talking about the Denver something, and it was the Denver Guardian.
yeah.
That sounds legit.
And it sounds like a legitimate
But
site.
it's not. It's a hoax site.
And they ran a story on the Saturday before the election that an FBI agent connected to Hillary's email disclosures had murdered his wife and then shot himself.
And I remember that. I remember that story going around Facebook.
Yeah, and it was a complete fabrication. The Denver Post found out that information and put that out in the real world, and and there's been a lot of that type of thing. I could read several others, but the next little point says that flyers were distributed to trick a lot of college students. It says the Bangor Daily News reports that there were flyers left on campuses of Bates College in Maine, telling students that if
What
they,
college?
Bates,
Bates.
yeah, that if they wanted to vote in Lewiston, they would have to pay to change their driver's licenses and re-register any vehicles in that city. Of course, that's hoax information for whomever to try to discourage, those college students from going to the polls. Now, I'm not saying by any means that this can happen exclusively on one side of the fence or the other. what I am saying that it is really dangerous that this is starting to be a thing because it is really affecting our
Go ahead.
it's affecting our election process. Go ahead.
This next one really, really pisses me off.
Oh,
I feel like if you are an actual elected official, you should have to lose your job for shit like that.
Yeah. So what she's talking about is the next one. It says a mayor posted a message from an incorrect date for election day. Jefferson Riley says he's the Republican mayor of Mansfield, Georgia, posted a message on his Facebook page. Remember the voting days. Republicans vote on Tuesday the 8th and Democrats on Wednesday the 9th. You know, and like I say,
that hurts your head. That hurts your head just to think about.
Yeah,
I'm like, what kind of asshat does stuff like that?
Well, it's a man that should be voted out in the next election.
Oh, but he won't be, I'm sure.
Not necessarily so.
You know, and I won't get into all of these, but I do feel like we're. I will give you one more. It says a tweet about a rigged voting machine in Philadelphia was shared 11,000 times. But it was a user error, according to ProPolitica's Election Land Project. So, once again, just throwing out information that seems credible, seems like it's coming from credible people, but it's just complete misinformation. And, whether it's coming out from the right or the left, it's affecting our election process. The real issue that I'm having with it is, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll probably mention it again, but there was for those of you who actually listen to the podcast on a regular basis, you've heard me mention a movie called Idiocracy a few times. In the movie, there's a very regular guy and a girl that I believe was she was a hooker, if I'm being correct. They wind up going to the future, and when they get to the future, they find out the horrifying fact that they are now the smartest people alive. And the president is like an ex wrestler, and not one that like left wrestling and then got really politically savvy. It looked like he just stopped wrestling.
But he was still wrestling.
Yeah, or still wrestling. Yeah, like it was
just as president.
Yeah, but he was president, right? And people didn't drink water anymore. Like when he was like, "Can I get some water?" and they were like, "Water? Like wait, like the stuff in the toilets?" Like they really and they were going through like a worldwide. The crops were all dying, and they couldn't figure out why the crops were dying, and they had their best minds working on it. Which, of course, their best minds were idiots, and what was happening was the crops were being watered with basically Gatorade or whatever they were calling
it. It was Gatorade.
Yeah, and he's like, why would you ever?
The whole movie.
But I have to say, I have to give the audience how stupid it really was, because they were like, why would you ever water the crops with Gatorade? And their answers was, which is why I always say I hate when we were having the election debates outside of this forum with people, and they would give talking points as their reasons for why they were voting. Wow. And that drove me crazy. So what the people said was, why are you watering the crops with Gatorade? They said, because it has electrolytes.
It hydrates.
It
hydrates.
Hey, they have no idea what an electrolyte is, what it does, but it had electrolytes, and so and some corporation bought up the rights, and so now nobody drank water. They only drank Gatorade because it had electrolytes. And so the guy, who was a very average guy, not super smart by any means, he kept trying to tell them you have to water the crops. You have to put water on the crops. And finally, by a mishap, water actually gets let out into the crops. And they almost immediately green up. And people are like, oh my God, you're so smart. You should be the president. And it feels as if
this is
we're sliding closer and closer.
That means I could be elected
this
president.
one. This one here
On the
is
Socialist Conservative platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
And he did get one vote, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
this one here. I just want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
The CNN corrected a tweet from Mr. Trump, which is kind of what I was talking about. So he tweeted Tuesday that Utah officials had reported problems with voting machines across the country. He tweeted that he got it from an uncredible source, and CNN had to address it that they didn't say that.
Yeah, and which is what I mean. It's not only that it's going around for us lay people to see and try to sift through, like our government officials and people running for office, and like they're falling trap to the misinformation nation too, and of course that only fuels the confusion that regular folks are having. So anyway. Excuse me. We really probably could dive much deeper into this topic, and I think I probably will pick it up on another day. But I did want to touch on a couple of other things.
I have an extra party snack.
Okay, let me do this real quick, and we will get to the party snack because I might be about to say it. So, what do we think about Jill Stein wanting to have recounts in what is it, the three states she wants to recount?
Well, it's officially Wisconsin, and they're talking about she has till tonight to do Michigan and tomorrow to do Pennsylvania, or vice versa.
Well, Michigan just came basically ratified today, and Trump had won by 10,000 some votes. So, Michigan was the last one to come in.
Which I did see.
I think if Michigan came in that late, they probably had a recount.
Yeah, which I did see on NPR.
In order for them to have that close of an election, they had to have a recount.
But Mike,
I don't know if they had any hanging chads or not, but hopefully they didn't.
what I would think would be interesting is, okay, so what if we do this recount and we found out it goes the other way? Then what?
Well, I mean, honestly and truthfully, if all three states recounted and all three states fell the other way, we have a different president. I mean, because that would tip the Electoral College the other direction, completely the other direction.
But Michigan's already been settled, so that's.
But they haven't done the recount.
But
yet.
they had till tonight to
close.
contest it. She had till tonight to contest it.
Right.
But my question is, in past political elections, except for the Bush Gore,
Yeah.
which was just Florida,
Which was just Florida.
once the concession was made,
No, they don't have to. And the concession came from Hillary. It didn't come from Jill.
I understand that.
Who is the one that's actually, the Green Party is doing this. And everybody except for Good Morning America.
Which gets back to the misinformation nation, that everybody was saying that, Hillary's calling for recounts when
no.
actually
This
Hillary's
is Jill
not
Stein.
calling for
She's
recounts.
actually,
But everybody's
she's up to
blaming
$6.2
the
million
Democratic Party.
in donation to the Green Party of
Right.
how much will be used, and who knows how much of it will be used.
Right.
It could be used to fund the Green Party for the next
No,
election, for all
she
we know.
even made a statement about that after Trump accused her of not using it. They put it in a completely separate account to only be used for recount purposes.
So I guess,
But still, it's still somewhat bothersome.
It may be bothersome, but this truly is our political system. They have the right to do
True.
that.
We had
It's frustrating to people. They don't understand why she's doing it. There were credible sources saying that There was potential issues in Wisconsin. That's why she started with them. So whether it's her winning or not, and because Hillary has said, I'm going to participate too, so that all parties are represented equally. Now it becomes, oh, she put her up to it. It's just crazy to me.
It is a little bit crazy, and that's the problem with it, is that it just, to me, it's bothersome. Because we already have President-elect, we're going to put a cabinet in place, and all the things are coming down with it. And here we are, almost a month after the election, and all of a sudden the pot's getting stirred again.
And that's my point, is I was thinking, if we were to go through this and then say it's okay, you know what, now it actually is Hillary. Do you think by making that change now, that it would be more damaging to the country's health by
Yes.
making that switch now?
I think
because of how passionate people are going to be even more? Because I feel like we've almost gotten to a point of acceptance through this. I mean, because it's been a month, it's been several weeks.
We have reached a
Almost
point of
month.
acceptance.
And so then to switch that again and just kind of start that fire back up, and then I feel like sides are going to be even more passionate, if you can even imagine.
Yeah. Well, what I hope is, because it is our political process, I hope that they go through, they do these recounts, and once again, I didn't vote for Trump, however the cookie crumbles with a recount, I'm fine with it. It is what it is. What I hope is that if they recount, it still falls for Trump, that people calm down and figure out what their next thing is that they should be doing really.
It just should be about the country.
Yeah, because
Because we still are, and I said this in the last podcast, we still are Americans. And we do have to honor what the system puts in front of us and try to do the best we can with it.
absolutely.
And that's what I mean, is I wasn't swaying one way or another. I'm just saying, do we think that would be even worse?
I
Just
think
given
it's
the
just
passion.
going to keep it going.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be worse or better. I think it's going to flip, and now the people that are like, you need to move on, are going to be up in arms and pissed off and God knows what. Just like, I don't think anybody expected the level of upset that we saw. But isn't it December 15th is the official close of...
Yeah.
That's
Of
when
the election.
That's when the electoral
I mean,
college votes, correct?
Which some of them can vote
It's one of the
against their state.
They can.
one of
And
the
they
Trump
get fined like $1,000 or something like that.
Something
one
crazy.
of the Texas
some of them did. vote
one of the
against their
Texas
state.
electoral, I don't know if they're judges, officials, whatever you want to call them, he was a Republican. He resigned because he can't vote for Trump
Yeah.
in Texas, which has 38 electoral votes.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have a lot of stuff out there that is. The electoral college is an interesting thing
Yeah.
because they don't have to always. Some states they have to vote, some states they don't have to vote, which is state rights, which is fine.
I
But
feel
it's-
like though in a federal election, everybody should have the same. It should all be. Everybody should have to adhere to the same voting policies. They should have to adhere to the same, rules for their.
I don't disagree.
I think when it's a federal election,
Yeah.
it should be federal laws, not I'm going to do what I want in my
and there
state.
are federal laws and
But
there's
state laws trump federal laws.
Yes, bingo.
And I don't, in
that
a
was the point I was
federal
about to
election,
make.
I don't think that that's right. I think federal laws should have precedence.
Oh, excuse me. I actually agree that I don't know if I agree that the Electoral College should be disbanded, but what I do believe is just that. And on a state level, you do what's right for your state. On the federal level, there should be one set of rules.
It's a federal election. I
Yeah.
won't disagree with that. I'm all about some state rights, and I think we need to have some state rights. If you want to have abortion in your state, you have abortion in your state. You want to have gay marriage, you have gay marriage. These are things that need to be state rights, and I don't think that the Supreme Court or anybody should have to judge on it.
Yeah, but when you're voting as a country for one thing.
It's a federal affair.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thing. All right, so my last thing that I had was not necessarily Misinformation Nation, but it is Misinformation Nation just the same, because it's just a claim that came from nowhere.
It came after the whole
Trump
recount.
Yeah, because it started with the whole with Joe Stein wanting the recount. Trump claimed that millions of illegal aliens voted for Clinton, and of course,
with nothing to substantiate.
Yeah. There's been nothing to substantiate that in any kind of way, and which gets me back to, I understand the kind of plain talk, like why people liked Trump, because he was a plain talker and a straight shooter and all of that stuff. But there does come a point where your plain talk should be based in plain facts. And what I truly hope is that our president-elect, and I do think it's going to come hard and fast, is that he's going to wind up learning some of these lessons
The hard way.
Because when it's time for him to actually take office, there's some things that are going to happen that he's just not going to be comfortable with.
Right, because when that time, it's not going to be a him versus her. He's up there by himself.
Yeah, no, it's you, and these are the rules of this office, and like he's going to have to give up Twitter. He's like,
He needs to give up Twitter.
The thing is, though, he doesn't realize it's not an option.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, there's a certain level of negotiation that you can do, but you're not going to be able to keep Twitter. You're not going to. The best you can do is hand your Twitter off to a White House staffer. That's the best you can. The best you can do.
Yeah, they've already said there is a White House Twitter.
You really
account.
can't even have your own just cell phone as president.
There is a White House Twitter account. There's a White House Facebook account. There's a POTUS Twitter.
Yeah.
Whoever is in that seat is the one that kind of owns that.
Yeah, but it's not the president actually.
Trump gives them his opinion. They spin it how they want to spin it, and they put it out.
And
that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean,
which would probably be the press secretary.
And that's
which is what the press secretary does.
Yeah, that's too bad, because I was kind of looking forward to tweeted photos of Area 51.
Never gonna happen. As a matter of fact,
he doesn't have control over that.
As a matter of fact, this is the funny thing. So before I
agree with you.
Before I close the show, and this is one bit of information that, once again, don't know if it's 100% substantiated, but I thought it was pretty funny. So when he went to the White House and met with President Obama, and they did all that, right after the election. A day or two later, he was actually supposed to go to the Pentagon and receive the briefing that all incoming presidents get, and they kind of give you which I was going to say. This part of it is substantiated, but he didn't go. He blew it off. The day that you're supposed to actually get the secrets and the nuclear football and all of the stuff, he didn't go. And I thought that was really kind of interesting and kind of telling of kind of how he's used to running his world versus kind of the harsh realities he's going to have to learn governing over all the people. Because in his world, if you don't want to take the meeting, you don't take the meeting. And there will be some meetings that he can say, no, I can't do that. But you can't say, I don't want the nuclear football, or don't tell me what's in Area 51, because you're the POTUS now. You have to know.
Can I throw my optimistic
thought
on that?
Please.
What I really, really hope happened was he stepped back and said, "You know what? I don't think I'm responsible enough to have this information. Maybe I'm not going to go to this meeting." And everyone
I
said,
just
"I
sent my
think that's a
national
good
security
idea."
advisor to
They,
do this.
I don't know how
Right?
many.
Yes.
And my defense advisor.
I don't know how many meetings he was supposed to have had, but they said I don't know, they said he's only been to 2 security meetings. And they made that sound like he should have been to quite a few more than that.
Yeah.
I still
So
say
I don't
that-
know what the.
I think he was
Well,
sitting
my
there and he
instant
said,
take on that as a businessman is, did he delegate?
Well,
You
that's the
can't
problem.
delegate. Only
That's
the
not something you can
president
delegate.
yeah, only the
Did he
president.
delegate to the people that knew something that would give him the information?
No.
And that's hard. Well, I don't I will disagree a little bit because I think that's how he's going to run his business. That he's going to
It's
have
not a
his
business,
assets.
though, and that's what
he
he
will
needs
approach
to get
America
out of.
as a business.
but you
That's
know
the
what?
problem.
Right or wrong.
That's the
right or
problem,
wrong.
though.
Right or wrong.
That's what
but
he
you know
will
what?
do.
On the other side, maybe he's saying this is a business and everyone else needs to start looking at it that way. I'm not saying that's right, but that could be his mindset.
You
Maybe
know, and-
so,
and
but
you know-
there are certain things, and national security is one of them that you don't delegate.
You know,
You
I think
can't.
it would be the best.
Nobody
I
else
disagree
can,
with that.
Nobody
It would be-
else can have the red phone. Nobody else can have the nuke code.
But it would
Nobody
be in the
else can do
benefit
that.
of all of us if he did delegate that. to
Maybe
not
it would be,
himself.
but you can't do that.
Yeah,
you
and
can't
I think-
rewrite
I
what the
think
president's job duties are.
yeah, I think that's what I mean. There are certain things that he's going to have to do that he's used to delegating out, and certain information that maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to know, but because he's the president, he's the buck does stop with him, so he's the one who has to know. And the reason that I believe this wholeheartedly is, if you think about it like this: when you leave the presidency, it's the only job that you retain Secret Service security for the rest of your life. That says to me, not that they're trying to, because once you leave office, nobody's trying to kill you. Why? Why would they?
Not necessarily.
Well, that could depend on how horrible president you were. But I will say this: it doesn't benefit anybody to assassinate a former president,
No, but if they want to kidnap him to get information,
which is very possible. But it also says to me, and this could be a slight bit of my conspiracy theorist past peeking up. It says to me that you now know too much. We can't let you just run around willy-nilly. You know, for the most part, unless you trot them out for an event, or they get into philanthropic work or something like that. What do most ex-presidents do?
Retire to their ranch.
yeah,
Exactly. And I think that there's a reason. I think you have to retire to a ranch somewhere because you know too.
So you're
damn
saying
much.
maybe the Secret Service isn't there to protect them; it's more to make sure that things just stay as they are.
Just stay as they are. And with that, I'm going to end this podcast in the way that I end all podcasts, and that is with the toast that started it all for me, and that is to good times with good people.